You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell. Jeb Bush is a low-energy person. For him to get things done is hard. I've given my answer, Lion Ted. I've given my answer.
I see him walking into these beautiful corridors in Washington, and guys say, hey, Lion Ted, how you doing? Little Marco.
Rocket Man should have been handled a long time ago. Little Rocket Man. I will build a great wall, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall.
Oh, well, that's a trade war. Trade war? We're losing $500 billion in trade with China. Who the hell cares if there's a trade war?
But I can't say anything to her because she's a woman, and I don't want to be accused of being tough on women. I can't do that, right? Women, am I allowed to fight back? Huh? Am I allowed?
I got news for you, Donald Trump. Women have had it with guys like you.
Elizabeth Warren today on social media went after you, calling you a loser. How are you going?
Who's that, the Indian? You mean the Indian?
She said she was an Indian. She said because her cheekbones were high, she was an Indian. Who, Pocahontas? Pocahontas? Well, no, she's...
Very offensive.
You tell me. Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry about that.
That's negative.
I call her Crooked Hillary. She's Crooked Hillary. Crooked. She's crooked as you can be. Now she's blaming the lie on the late, great Abraham Lincoln. Honest Abe never lied. That's the good thing. That's the big difference between Abraham Lincoln and you. Really stupid guy, Chuck Todd. I won't use his name.
Let me let you respond to those poll numbers, which I think that you wanted to respond to.
I didn't want to respond. Your people called my office about 40 times asking me to go onto the show. So it's dishonest what you're saying, Chuck. You got to tell the truth.
For immigrants on the whole
Come on, try getting it out. Try getting it out.
I'll get it out.
I mean, I don't know if you're going to put this on television, but you don't even know what you're talking about. Try getting it out. Go ahead. Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's
you
the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to... You're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
My views on Donald Trump are complicated, which is why I made this video. This is a pretty long video because the topic is so big. So grab your favorite beverage and settle in. And I'll be very interested in reading your thoughts in the comments. This video is a study on what I think makes Donald Trump successful and how I think Donald Trump's mind works. I've been in the advertising business for 35 years, and Donald Trump is one of the greatest marketers and self-promoters of all time. Donald Trump is a multi-billionaire. He won the presidency, having never held public office. And he will likely win a second term as president. So he's well worth studying regardless of what you think of Donald Trump. It now appears that Donald Trump is about to win his second term as president, even while fighting off 88 criminal indictments, to include 4 criminal trials and 2 civil lawsuits. In fact, with each new set of criminal charges brought against Donald Trump by the Biden Justice Department and local Democrat prosecutors, Donald Trump gains in popularity. Now, of course, these cases never would have been brought against anyone not named Donald Trump. Joe Biden is literally trying to put his political opponent in prison. And this would not be happening if Donald Trump had simply announced that he was leaving politics. The American people can see this, and they don't like it. The Biden regime is following the old Joseph Stalin maxim. Show me the man, and I'll find the crime. So these political prosecutions and this lawfare that Democrats are waging against Donald Trump are definitely helping him, because most people can see exactly what's happening. Now, it's of course possible that Donald Trump will be convicted of some technical violation that few people will understand, but I suspect that whatever happens in these courtrooms will carry little or no weight with voters. But what's amazing to me is that the weight and pressure of these legal cases, this avalanche of criminal charges and lawsuits, have not crushed the spirit of Donald Trump. He's actually gaining strength. Donald Trump is an energy monster. The more they throw at him, the stronger he gets. I should also tell you that I was no fan of Donald Trump in 2016 during the Republican primaries. I was not for Donald Trump at all. And I was not for Donald Trump in 2020 for the Republican nomination. I was for Ron DeSantis. I also very much like Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, obviously, I'm for Donald Trump over Joe Biden. Another 4 years of Joe Biden would be a disaster. I really don't think America could survive another 4 years of the Biden regime. And America did do very well under President Trump until the pandemic hit in March of 2020. when the entire world economy shut down, completely unnecessarily in my view. My distaste for Donald Trump stems from the fact that I came of age during the era of Ronald Reagan. I'm a Ronald Reagan-style conservative. Reagan won 49 states in 1984. I wrote speeches for Reagan during his 1984 campaign. I also wrote speeches for George H.W. Bush's 1988 presidential campaign. Reagan's style was sunny and upbeat. He never insulted anyone. In his debate with Jimmy Carter during the 1980 campaign, this is about as rough as Reagan got with Carter.
Next Tuesday is Election Day. Next Tuesday, all of you will go to the polls. You'll stand there in the polling place and make a decision. I think when you make that decision, it might be well if you would ask yourself, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Is it easier for you to go and buy things in the stores than it was 4 years ago? Is there more or less unemployment in the country than there was 4 years ago? Is America as respected throughout the world as it was? Do you feel that our security is as safe, that we're as strong as we were 4 years ago? And if you answer all of those questions yes, why then I think your choice is very obvious as to who you'll vote for. If you don't agree, if you don't think that this course that we've been on for the last 4 years is what you would like to see us follow for the next 4, then I could suggest another choice that you have. This country doesn't have to be in the shape that it is in. We do not have to go on sharing in scarcity with the country getting worse off, with unemployment growing. We talk about the unemployment lines. If all of the unemployed today were in a single line, allowing 2 feet for each one of them, that line would reach from New York City to Los Angeles, California. All of this can be cured, and all of it can be solved. I would like to have a crusade today, and I would like to lead that crusade with your help. And it would be one to take government off the backs of the great people of this country and turn you loose again to do those things that I know you can do so well because you did them and made this country great.
With this approach, Reagan won 489 electoral votes to 49 electoral votes for Carter. Then, of course, Reagan went on to win 49 states in 1984. I always thought the winning formula in politics, at least for Republicans, is just to do what Reagan did. Just copy Reagan. I just did not think Donald Trump's style or his approach had any chance at all in the general election, almost no matter who the Democrats would put up. So my preference in 2016 was Scott Walker, the governor of Wisconsin. I liked Walker because he was a steady and proven conservative, and he won 2 terms as governor in Wisconsin, a blue Democrat state. I also knew that Republicans needed to win Wisconsin, or at least one of the 3 big Midwestern states if they wanted to win the presidency. Needed to win Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania. And I thought Scott Walker would appeal to Midwesterners. And here was Scott Walker's only exchange with Donald Trump on the debate stage in 2016 that I can remember.
Mr. Trump, we don't need an apprentice in the White House. We don't need an apprentice in the White House. We have one right now.
Governor Walker taking on the front runner with Trump biting back fast on Walker's image as governor.
When the folks of Iowa found out the true facts of the job that you've done in Wisconsin, all of a sudden you tubed. He was number 1. Now he's number 6 or 7 in the polls.
Just because he says it doesn't make it true.
So that was it for Walker. And Walker had an excellent conservative record as governor of Wisconsin. But he was too vanilla, too boring. So he was blasted off the stage by Donald Trump's blowtorch. So Walker had to drop out of the Republican primaries before the Iowa caucus, even though Walker had been favored to win the Iowa caucuses at one point. So then I was either for Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio. Now I was no fan of President George W. Bush. The Iraq War was obviously a huge mistake. But Jeb was much more articulate than his brother, George W. Bush. And Jeb had done a good job as governor of Florida for 2 terms. And I assumed Jeb would be the nominee because he had raised by far the most money. I wasn't enthusiastic about Jeb, but I thought he'd do a fine job as president. Wouldn't destroy the country or anything. That's my first criteria for president these days. Someone who will not actively try to destroy the country.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
And here was Obama's pastor, Jeremiah Wright.
No, not God bless America, God damn America.
So I was looking for someone who was not actively trying to destroy America or trying to fundamentally change America. How can you love your country if you want to fundamentally change it? Suppose I told my wife Wanda I like you, honey. I love you. I love you. But what I'd like to do is fundamentally change who you are. I don't think that would go over too well. But that's what Obama promised to do to America. So I was looking for someone who was not actively trying to destroy America. So in other words, a pretty low bar. And I assumed Jeb would be the nominee because he had raised $150 million and was by far the front runner before the debate started. And I was for almost anybody in the field except for Donald Trump, who I saw as a narcissist, a braggart, without any coherent political philosophy. I just assumed he was running as some kind of marketing stunt or to build his brand or something. I also had a very negative personal interaction with Donald Trump at the top of Aspen Mountain of all places, when he was with Marla Maples, and I think this was in 1993 or 1994. I was outside near the ski racks, and I've been skiing all my life. I grew up in Vermont and was a top-level junior ski racer, so I know what I'm doing on the ski slope. So I'm putting my skis on at the top of Aspen Mountain, and I noticed a woman who was right next to me was crying. She was having trouble putting her skis on because snow was caked on the sole of her ski boot. She couldn't get the snow off. And there was this tall guy yelling at her to get her skis on and to hurry up. And he was not helping. And I look up, and it's Donald Trump. And the crying woman was Marla Maples. And Trump said something like, "F this, I'm taking off, find your own way down the mountain," something like that. And then he just took off and left Marla at the top of Aspen Mountain. And she was clearly a rank beginner skier. So I helped Marla get the snow off the sole of her ski boot and get her skis on, and I take her down the easiest trail. And this took a long time because she really was a beginning skier. And when we get down to the bottom, Donald Trump is nowhere to be found. And I'm thinking, what a jackass. And then Marla gives me a big hug, thanks me, and goes into the ski lodge. That was my impression of Donald Trump. So in 2016, I was for any Republican but Trump. I also thought that if Donald Trump somehow did win the Republican nomination, he would get crushed by Hillary Clinton or whoever the Democrats put up, Bernie or whoever. I just thought there's no way the country's going for this guy. But then Trump crushed Jeb with ease, crushed him like a gnat, even though Jeb had raised $150 million. So that was shocking. So after Jeb was gone, I supported Marco Rubio. I was a Florida resident, so I voted for Rubio in the Florida primary. And Donald Trump blew out Marco Rubio by 18 or 19 points in Florida, Rubio's home state. So after that, it was pretty clear that Donald Trump was going to win the Republican nomination with ease. Yeah, Ted Cruz was still in the race, but it was clear that Trump was going to decimate Ted Cruz. It was at that point that I decided I had to take a closer look at Trump. Try to figure out, what is Trump's appeal? What is his secret? Because I saw nothing that I liked about Donald Trump. So I studied Trump's performance in all 12 2016 Republican primary debates, in a quest to find out how Donald Trump was able to win the Republican nomination for president so easily, having never run for political office before. And it wasn't even a contest. These were very seasoned politicians, very accomplished, who Donald Trump crushed like gnats. Jeb Bush was a highly successful two-term governor of Florida, who had raised $150 million. And he was by far the most articulate member of the Bush family. And he'd also established a record as a solid conservative in Florida. Jeb Bush was always thought to be the most conservative member of the Bush family. He had a coherent political philosophy. He could answer questions with complete sentences. So I wanted to know, what was Donald Trump's secret? What was he doing that I wasn't seeing? Because Donald Trump was breaking every rule of politics that I thought I knew. Well, for a clue to the answer, let's look at how Donald Trump fielded a question from Megyn Kelly, who was then with Fox News. And this was in the first Republican primary debate in August of 2015. And no one was ready for Donald Trump. And you can certainly tell from Megyn Kelly's question here that she was no fan of Donald Trump either. She was probably for Jeb or for Marco Rubio. And my guess is she was pretty sure she could take Donald Trump out with this question.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't.
And this answer by Donald Trump demonstrates that he has black belt marketing skills on many levels. I did not appreciate this at the time when I was watching it live, but I saw it on review. I probably was just so biased against Trump when I saw the first debate, and I just did not pick up on the brilliance of his answer. Donald Trump dismissed Megyn Kelly's question with a joke, and by serving up a funny visual that just brought the house down with laughter. He said he was only talking about Rosie O'Donnell. Now, Rosie O'Donnell is pretty much out of the news today. But back then, she was a well-known comedian. She was also a thorn in the side of Republicans. She was a Republican hater, and she was hostess of The View. This is before Joy Behar took over as hostess of the show. And most Republicans were not fans of Rosie O'Donnell. But actually, she could be pretty funny.
All right, so Donald Trump is in the news again because allowing. Well, because his show, The Apprentice, is starting again in January. Oh, yeah. He held a big press conference to see if he was going to allow Miss USA, such a prestigious title, to regain and retain. Miss America is the prestige. Miss USA is a different thing.
Representing America in a bathing suit.
Yes, it's apparently this young girl, Tara Connor, how old is she? 21. She went out and she was partying. She's from Kentucky.
She's so cute.
She went to New York and she was hanging out at all the parties, doing what Paris and Lindsay do, you know, dancing, whatever. And so he held a press conference to announce whether or not she was going to retain her crown. Yeah. And then she started to cry.
She did.
So I just want to thank Donald is giving me a second chance.
And it's brilliant.
And there he is, hair looping, going, everyone deserves a second chance. And I'm going to give her a second chance.
Her hair is perfect for that. Your hair is perfect.
I'm no fan of Rosie, but she actually was a pretty talented comedian. A whole lot funnier than Joy Behar. And honestly, I pretty much agreed with Rosie's assessment of Donald Trump at that time. But Donald Trump's reference to Rosie O'Donnell in the answer to Megyn Kelly's question was a masterstroke. And it brought the house down. So then Megyn tried to follow up with this.
For the record, it was well beyond Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Your Twitter account has several disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees. Does that sound to you like the temperament of a man we should elect as president? And how will you answer the charge from Hillary Clinton, who is likely to be the Democratic nominee, that you are part of the war on women?
I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness. And to be honest with you, this country doesn't have time either. This country is in big trouble. We don't win anymore. We lose to China. We lose to Mexico, both in trade and at the border. We lose to everybody. And frankly, what I say, and oftentimes it's fun, it's kidding, we have a good time, what I say is what I say. And honestly, Megyn, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you, although I could probably maybe not be based on the way you have treated me, but I wouldn't do that. But you know what? We need strength, we need energy, we need quickness, and we need brain in this country to turn it around. That I can tell you right now.
But by this time, the audience was still thinking about Rosie O'Donnell and was still chuckling and really wasn't listening to anything that Megyn had to say. So Trump just ignored Megyn's follow-up and moved on to themes that he wanted to talk about. And he ends his answer here with, frankly, I don't have time for political correctness. And this country doesn't have time either. This country is in big trouble. We don't win anymore. We lose to China. We lose to Mexico. Interesting here, Trump delivers a bit of a veiled threat to Megyn, saying, I've been very nice to you, but I could maybe not be based on how you've treated me, but I wouldn't do that. Then he goes on to say, but we need strength. We need energy. We need quickness. We need brain. And he points to his head like this because Trump is a master of using the visual. We need brain. We need strength. We need energy. We need quickness. We need brain. And this is really the hallmark of a great marketer. He constantly uses very simple terms that people can understand, and he uses visuals. And when he says he was talking about Rosie O'Donnell, that's specific, and it's visual, and it's funny. Whereas Megyn was talking about women in general. That's abstract, not specific. And notice also that Trump in his statement here, at the end of his statement, he's talking about the needs for strength and energy and speed and brain, which is certainly in short supply among our political leaders, especially our current president. He has no functioning brain. So Trump is saying we want a president with energy, with strength, with speed. And he contrasts this brilliantly with low-energy Jeb.
Jeb Bush, we call him low energy, low energy.
You can't just tell Congress you're fired and go to commercial break.
This is a guy who was a Democrat for most of the last decade. I don't think he represents the Republican Party.
There's a big difference between Donald Trump and me. I'm a proven conservative with a record. He isn't.
Jeb Bush is a low energy person. For him to get things done is hard. I think Jeb is a nice person. He's very low energy. I'm not used to that kind of a person. Look, Jeb is a nice guy. He's a stiff, okay? He ought to do what Walker did. Walker
he should drop out?
Oh, absolutely. He's no chance. And he's been branded as a low energy person. I don't know who branded him that. I don't know. I can't imagine. When you said low energy for Bush, you defined him so incredibly. It was over. He can have $125 million in the bank. It's over.
The brilliance of Trump's branding of Jeb as low energy Jeb is he took what most people saw as a positive and flipped it into a negative. Most people saw Jeb as statesmanlike, as likable, as presidential. Trump flipped all this into a negative by branding Jeb as low energy Jeb. Then as the election year progressed, we also got Lil Marco, Lion Ted, Crooked Hillary. This is branding. And Trump understands branding as well as anyone. His branding skills are nuclear level. When you think of Frosted Flakes, you think of Tony the Tiger, right? That's branding. But of all the monikers that Trump came up with, I really think Low Energy Jeb was the best. Because for a joke to work, there has to be a strong element of truth to it. So instead of statesmanlike, even-tempered, and presidential, people started to think, well, yeah, I like Jeb, but he is kind of low energy. Maybe he's too nice. Maybe we need a high-energy fighter like Donald Trump. And that was exactly the contrast Donald Trump wanted to plant in people's minds. So this is black belt level marketing and branding on a level that I've never seen before in any politician. And Jeb, of course, wasn't used to this. No one was. No one had ever campaigned for the presidency this way. So let's watch Trump just dismantle Jeb with mockery and one savage hit after another.
Who would you rather have negotiate with Iran, Trump or Jeb?
And I think you can see I'm having a good time. I really am. You know, they said to Jeb Bush, he was like this. They said, are you having fun? Yes.
I know how to do this.
Jeb Bush had $168 million put in the bank by lots of different people that would have controlled him, ding, 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 like a puppet.
Standard operating procedure to disparage me. That's fine. I don't really
spend
care.
a little more money on the commercials. And they'll say, they gave you $1 million to your campaign, and this one gave you $5 million, and this one, you have to do it. You know what he's going to say? Okay, I'll do it.
He supports Democrats. This is not a guy who's a conservative.
I'm a conservative person. Bush says, I do not believe he's a true conservative. These people are stupid.
And here Trump brilliantly answers the criticism about his harsh tone.
The problem with Mr. Trump's language is it's divisive, it's ugly, it's mean-spirited.
Bush said, my tone's not nice. I don't like Donald Trump's tone. You know, he's a low-energy guy, so he doesn't like my tone. I said, tone, we need tone. We need enthusiasm. We need tone.
We need tone. We need energy. We need enthusiasm, Trump says. And Trump does this with mockery and humor. And he is pretty funny. So here Trump even hits Jeb for complimenting Trump as gifted.
You know, Jeb Bush said, Donald Trump is a gifted politician.
I mean, he's gifted, but he's not.
And what do you make of the fact that he keeps going up in the polls?
I don't think it's going to continue.
My wife said, I thought he was your enemy. Why is he saying that? I said, because he's stupid. What can I tell you? I'm not saying anybody's gifted. I say they're all stiffs. You know, it's easy.
Trump presents Jeb's compliment as weakness.
I know how to do this. It is not about trash talk.
Presidential's easy. You know what presidential is? I walk on. Here's what.
And then here poor Jeb tries to get down into the gutter with Trump.
Trump. Just one word.
Loser.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
And that's never going to go well for anyone. And it doesn't work well for Jeb either because that's just not his personality. Jeb is a nice person. He's well-mannered. It just doesn't look right when Jeb tries to insult someone because that's not his personality. That's not who he is. And he pretty much can't do it. You have to be who you are. And no one's going to come out looking good getting into a mud wrestling match with Trump. No one's going to beat Trump at gutterball. And here Trump goes after the entire Bush family. And no doubt Trump knew that this would completely unravel Jeb.
He's ashamed of the Bush name. You ever see a sign that says Jeb Bush or Bush? Now, there's a reason he doesn't use his last name, because it's not going to work too well. We had a lot of problems with that last name.
I'd love to have your support. Hi.
Absolutely.
I'm Jeb. How are you?
What Jeb Bush has done to the Bush family is very sad. Your brother and your brother's administration gave us Barack Obama because it was such a disaster those last 3 months that Abraham Lincoln couldn't have been elected. Obviously, the war in Iraq was a big, fat mistake. George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty.
He sent a clear signal that the United States would be strong and fight Islamic terrorism, and he did keep us safe.
I don't know, you feel safe right now? I don't feel so safe.
And notice what Trump did here. Trump says, I don't know, do you feel safe? I don't feel so safe. What Trump is doing here is saying what is probably in the minds of most people. Do most people feel safe? Probably not. And never mind that Obama was president at this time and had been president for 8 years, not George W. Bush. But Trump delivered the blow. Do you feel safe? I don't feel so safe. So people are then thinking, yeah, I don't feel so safe. Trump is one of the best at knowing how to read the room and saying exactly what people are thinking. And this is what the great salesmen do. They know what their target market is thinking, and then they mirror the thought. Or even if people aren't thinking exactly that at that moment, they plant the thought in people's mind and cause them to say, yeah, that's right. Or in this case, Trump got them to think, no, I don't really feel that safe either. I mean, do people really feel safe ever? I don't think people ever really feel safe. So this is a line you can use almost any time. Trump knows this because he is a master salesman. Let's continue with Trump's attack on the Bush family.
The last thing we need is another Bush.
I am sick and tired of him going after my family.
The World Trade Center came down during the reign of George. That's not safe. That is not safe.
Now, obviously, this was a completely unfair attack on George W. Bush. He had only been president for 10 months, and the audience booed Trump for this. This was a brutal and really unfair comment. But Trump's brand is also as a brawler, as a gutter fighter. And most people probably want a brawler, a gutter fighter, on their side. Also, of course, many in the audience were donors to Jeb, so would certainly be booing that line by Trump. Trump will hit his opponent with any and every weapon he has. He will come at his opponent from the right and from the left. It doesn't matter. When he sees an opening, he'll hit. And here his mission was to say, America does not need a third President Bush.
I will be a commander-in-chief that will have the back of the military. I won't trash talk.
Jeb.
I got to get this off my chest. Donald Trump is a jerk. I feel better now.
If you listen to him and you listen to some of the folks that I've been listening to, that's why we've been in the Middle East for 15 years.
And here Trump hits the Bush dynasty for getting America into endless wars, a theme that resonates with many independents and many supporters of Bernie Sanders. Now let's hear Trump crush Jeb on the issue of border security, branding Jeb as soft on illegal immigration.
Jeb said when they come across the southern border, they come as an act of love.
You said in September 30th that ISIS was not a
Am I
not
talking or are you talking, Jeb?
I'm talking right now. I'm talking.
You can go back. You're not talking. You interrupted me,
September
Jeb.
30th,
Are you going to
you said
apologize, Jeb? No. Am I allowed to finish?
Yes, one at a time.
Excuse
Go ahead,
me. Am I allowed to finish?
Go ahead, Mr. Trump.
So,
Little of your
again,
own medicine there.
I know you're trying to build
Bush,
up your energy,
please.
Jeb, but it's not working
one at
very
a time.
well.
And here you see how Trump just dominates the stage. Everyone else on the stage pretty much just disappears. Trump is insulting and he is juvenile in many ways, but he's also an energy monster.
Yeah.
Look. We need a toughness. We need strength. We're not respected as a nation anymore. We don't have that level of respect that we need. And if we don't get it back fast, we're just going to go weaker, and just disintegrate. We can't allow that to happen. We need strength. We don't have it. When Jeb comes out and he talks about the border, and I saw it, and I was witness to it, and so was everyone else, and I was standing there, they come across as an act of love. He's saying the same thing right now with radical Islam. And we can't have that in our country. It just won't work. We need strength.
And here Trump hits again on the theme of the need for strength. He keeps repeating, we need strength. And strength is what people want in a president. Somebody who will stand up for America. And he contrasts this with Jeb's weakness on border security. which dovetails perfectly with Trump's branding of Jeb as low energy.
Governor Bush.
Donald, you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen. And I do have the strength. Leadership is not about attacking people and disparaging people. Leadership is about creating a serious strategy to deal with the threat of our time. This is a tough business to run for president.
I know. You're a tough guy, Jeb.
And we need to have a leader that is principled. You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting your way to the presidency.
Let's see. I'm at 42 and you're at 3. So far I'm doing better.
Doesn't matter.
Now, I actually agree with Jeb on this. But what the Republican grassroots wants is strength in a fighter. The Republican electorate doesn't want business as usual or status quo politics. Republican grassroots voters want somebody who really will push back against the corrupt Washington, D.C. swamp, not someone who is comfortable with the swamp in Washington.
You win when you campaign like this. You don't win when you're campaigning like this.
You know what's happening to Jeb's crowd, as you know, right down the street? They're sleeping. They're sleeping now.
You got Hillary Clinton to go to your wedding because you gave her money. Maybe it works for Hillary Clinton. It doesn't work for anybody on this stage.
I was a businessman. I got along with Clinton. I got along with everybody. That was my job, to get along with people.
But the simple fact...
Again, Trump here is a master at flipping the script. Jeb tries to attack Trump for having the Clintons at his wedding and for getting along with the Clintons. So Trump just says he was doing business in New York. His job was to get along with people.
Excuse me. 1 second.
No.
I didn't want to...
Donald, you cannot take...
More energy tonight. I like that.
So he's doing this to inflame and to incite and to draw attention, which seems to be his organizing principle of his campaign.
This guy can't negotiate his way out of a paper bag.
And whether it's Donald Trump or Barack Obama, their rhetoric of divisiveness is wrong.
Very weak on immigration, wants to let people come in. Although now he is using Anchor Baby. Now because I used it, he's using it.
I appreciate the fact that Mr. Trump now has a plan, if that's what it's called.
Bush is failing. He's a very nice person. Highly low on energy. He really is. He's low. He's low. He's low on energy. But he's a nice person.
So here in this clip, we see Trump, after having vanquished Jeb, saying nice and gracious things about Jeb.
You and Jeb Bush had a little back and forth. Admittedly, he's low in the polls. You got pretty fired up. Why even bother going there with him?
Well, you know, honestly, he's a very high-quality person. I like him. I actually like him. People say that can't be possible. It is possible. I respect him and I like him.
Jeb is still in the race, but he's fallen to single digits in the polls and is clearly about to drop out. And it's been a pretty humiliating experience for Jeb. So Trump here is saying nice things about Jeb. And what we're going to see throughout this video is that this is a recurring pattern. Trump actually wants to get along with people. First he hammers his opponent, and then he extends an olive branch, the hand of peace. It's a tactic. It's carrot and stick. If you're on the Trump team, he'll love you. If not, he'll pulverize you. Let's look at how Trump dispatches some of the minor candidates in the GOP field pretty much the same way. Though in these cases, it didn't take much. Here's how he handled Texas Governor Rick Perry.
Donald Trump's candidacy is a cancer on conservatism, and it must be clearly diagnosed, excised, and discarded.
I see Rick Perry the other day, and he's so, he's doing very poorly in the polls. He put glasses on so people will think he's smart.
Donald Trump does not have the character, nor does he have the temperament.
It just doesn't work. People can see through the glasses.
He offers a barking carnival act.
I have many millions between Facebook and Twitter. It's great. It's like owning a newspaper without the losses. It's incredible. So I tweeted that Rick Perry should have to have an IQ test before getting on the debate stage.
Then here's what Trump said about Rick Perry after Perry dropped out and endorsed Trump.
And a friend of mine, he's another one. He was so tough. He was nasty, man. Boy, he hit me during the campaign. I said, that guy's ruthless. And when it was sort of over, there was nobody more gracious. And Rick Perry couldn't have done a better job. He was also a great governor of Texas, that you know.
And here's how Trump handled Rand Paul.
Jeb Bush even said that Donald Trump is out to destroy the Republican Party. What do you think about that?
I think that Donald Trump is a fake. I think he's a fake conservative, and really there's not much about him that is conservative.
I think really there's a sophomore quality that is entertaining about Mr. Trump. But I am worried. I'm very concerned about having him in charge of the nuclear weapons, because I think his response, his visceral response to attack people on their appearance, short, tall, fat, ugly. My goodness, that happened in junior high. Are we not way above that? And would we not all be worried to have someone like that in charge of the nuclear arsenal?
Mr. Trump. I never attacked him on his look, and believe me, there's plenty of subject matter right there. That I can tell you.
But Jake,
I want to...
You gotta admit, that was pretty funny. And that was the end of Rand Paul. But then when Rand Paul dropped out of the race and climbed on board the Trump train and endorsed Donald Trump could not say nicer things about Rand Paul.
Also with us tonight is a great warrior and a great guy. Smart, strong, loves your state, and he's really become a good friend of mine. And I'll tell you, he's a little bit different. It's okay. But whenever I've needed him, he was always there. It's true. I mean, sometimes, like, I'd say, I don't need your vote, Rand. Good. And he'll vote his own way. He's got that little libertarian touch. That's okay. That's okay. But whenever we need, and I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about we need a vote. He's so incredible, and he's become a really good friend. And I want to have him come up for a second. Rand Paul, your senator, a great warrior.
President Trump has great courage. He faces down the fake media every day. But Congress needs to step up and have equal courage to defend the president.
And this is the Trump formula. Turn his blowtorch on his opponent until there's nothing left, until his opponent is a cinder. But when the opponent is defeated and climbs on board the Trump train, Trump could not be nicer and more gracious. And this is a big part of how Donald Trump gets what he wants. He certainly does have an either you're with me or against me approach. And at least in Republican circles, he has taught Republicans that they tend to do better if they're with him than against him. And for those who are with him, he'll be as nice to them as it's possible to be. And let's watch this pattern unfold with Ted Cruz, who he branded Lion Ted. And this is really my favorite part of the video.
He is an amazing entertainer, but his policies for most of his life...
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
For most of his life, his policies have been very, very liberal. For most of his life, he has described himself as very pro-choice and as a supporter of partial birth abortion. Matter of principle, and I'll tell you...
You are the single biggest liar. You are the single biggest liar.
All right.
This guy lied. Let me just tell you, this guy lied about Ben Carson when he took votes away from Ben Carson in Iowa. And he just continues. This guy will say anything. The case of Lion Ted Cruz, Lion Ted, lies. Oh, he lies. You know, Ted, he brings the Bible, holds it high, puts it down, lies.
Remember, Trump is a master at branding his opponent. He dispatched Jeb with ease with his low-energy Jeb brand. And his moniker for Ted was Lion Ted. Now here Ted Cruz makes a big mistake by attacking so-called New York values.
I think most people know exactly what New York values are.
I am from New York.
You're from New York, so
Yeah.
you might not.
And look how serious Trump is here. You are about to hear serious Trump, not mocking Trump. Serious Trump is even more devastating than Trump mocking. When Trump is mocking someone, he's having fun, he's joking. But here, he's serious. And get ready, because this is another rhetorical weapon that Donald Trump is able to roll out with great skill. Trump is often a clown and very funny, but he can also get very serious when it's called for.
But I promise you, in the state of South Carolina, they do. And listen, there are many, many wonderful, wonderful working men and women in the state of New York. But everyone understands that the values in New York City are socially liberal or pro-abortion or pro-gay marriage, focus around money and the media. And I guess I can frame it another way. Not a lot of conservatives come out of Manhattan. I'm just saying.
Conservatives actually do come out of Manhattan, including William F. Buckley and others, just so you understand. New York is a great place. It's got great people. It's got loving people, wonderful people. When the World Trade Center came down, I saw something that no place on earth could have handled more beautifully, more humanely than New York. You had two 110-story buildings come crashing down. I saw them come down. And we saw more death and even the smell of death. Nobody understood it. And it was with us for months, the smell, the air. And we rebuilt downtown Manhattan. And everybody in the world watched, and everybody in the world loved New York and loved New Yorkers. And I have to tell you, that was a very insulting statement that Ted made.
So that was an absolutely devastating response by Trump. And it was a dumb tactic by Cruz to attack so-called New York values, whatever they are. So let's look at some more back and forth between Trump and Cruz, where Trump returns to more mockery.
He is choking like a dog because he's losing so badly. We have to put him away tomorrow.
This man is a pathological liar, a narcissist at a level I don't think this country's ever seen.
So will you support him as the nominee?
I'm going to beat him for the nomination.
That's not
He
answering
is
the
not.
question, Senator.
I am answering the question. Donald Trump will not be the nominee.
He's leading right now. You
Donald
just looked in
Trump
that
will
camera
not
and
be
said
the
he's
nominee.
a coward. Will you support him as the nominee?
Donald Trump will not be the nominee.
He's lying Ted, and that's his name. And I think, frankly, that name is stuck.
He'll say, Donald Trump wants to absolutely get rid of the Second Amendment. We're going to protect our Second Amendment. This guy...
Why do you
Adults
lie?
learn not to interrupt you.
Why do you lie? Excuse me. I've given my answer, Lion Ted. I've given my answer.
Nobody likes him. I've never seen a guy like this. In fact... Have we branded this guy or what?
This is the power of branding. Remember, for a brand to stick, there has to be a strong element of truth to it. What Cruz did that was really bad, or that his team did, was to put the word out that Ben Carson was dropping out of the race before the Iowa caucus, when Ben Carson was not actually dropping out. Ben Carson was in first place or second place at the time, in the lead up to the Iowa caucus. But then the Cruz team put the word out that Ben Carson was dropping out. So this was a really dirty trick by Team Cruz. So Trump branded him Lion Ted. And this stuck because there was kind of an element of truth to it.
What's your name? My name's Lion Ted Cruz.
I see him walking into these beautiful corridors in Washington, and guys say, hey, Lion Ted, how you doing?
And here Trump is again a master of the visual. You can imagine people saying, hey, Lion Ted, how you doing, Lion Ted? So it's visual and it's hilarious. And by this time, it's a two-man race between Trump and Cruz. So Trump takes his mockery of Cruz to yet another level. He accuses Cruz of being a Canadian and not eligible to run for president. And this is hilarious because it threw Ted Cruz's campaign into disarray.
Trump accused Cruz of being a Canadian. Out on the campaign trail, Trump has been goading Cruz about whether Cruz, who was born in Canada, is actually eligible to run for president.
He was actually a citizen of Canada until 15 months ago, which a lot of people don't understand. And that's a big problem.
Cruz was born in Calgary, Alberta, to a Cuban father and an American mother, but he renounced his Canadian citizenship in 2014. He insists he's American through and through.
The only questions he was pretty much asked by reporters was whether or not he's a Canadian.
I have never breathed a breath of air on this planet when I was not a U.S. citizen.
There is a serious question as to whether or not Ted can do this, okay? Because he was not born on the land, he cannot run for office.
There have been questions raised about the issue of, are you eligible to run for president? You were born in Canada.
So that was just brilliant by Trump. Then Trump combined that with the Lion Ted brand.
He became a United States Senator, and then he said, I didn't know I was a citizen of Canada. Lion Ted, Lion Ted.
My mom is a U.S. citizen by birth. She was born in Wilmington, Delaware. Sir, I'll answer your question, but I'm not going to debate you.
You should go out, get a declaratory judgment, let the courts decide.
Sir, okay, next question.
And here's a great jab by Trump after Ted Cruz won Maine.
I want to congratulate Ted on Maine. He should do well in Maine because it's very close to Canada, let's face it. I mean, here's the problem. We're running. He does great. I win. I choose him as my vice presidential candidate, and the Democrats sue because we can't take him along for the ride. I don't like that.
What passport?
Donald Trump is saying that you had a Canadian passport.
Not true.
False.
Yeah.
Never had a Canadian passport in your entire life.
Of course not. No.
And you're sure you asked your mother, you asked your dad, you never had one.
Yes, I'm sure.
Why are you raising this issue now? Because now he's doing a little bit better. After we win, we got to get that name off his, who wants to go around with that name? Lyin with a little apostrophe.
And here's what happened to Ted Cruz when he was talking to a crowd of voters in Indiana.
Let me ask you something, sir. What do you like about Donald?
Everything.
Give me one.
Everything.
Give me one. Can you pick anything?
Donald Trump sucks too! The wall.
Okay, the wall. Now, do you know on the wall that Donald told the New York Times editorial board he's not going to build a wall and he's not going to deport anyone?
You're lying. Once again, lying Ted!
Well, sir.
Career politicians have killed America!
Let me ask
You are the problem.
Let me ask you
You are the
something, sir.
problem,
All right,
politician. You are the problem.
Out of all of the candidates, name one who had $1 million judgment against him for hiring illegal aliens.
Name one.
Donald Trump is the only.
That's right.
Okay,
Not
so you like rich people who buy politicians.
Where's your Goldman Sachs jacket at? We know your wife works there.
Well, sir, you are entitled to have your rights, but I'll tell you this. Sir, America is a better country.
Without you.
And a question that everyone here should ask.
Are you Canadian?
Do you want your kids?
Are you Canadian?
Do you want your kids repeating the words of Donald Trump? Would you be proud if your kids came home cursing and yelling and insulting? And let me give you an example.
That's right.
I respect your right to speak, but I'm also going to say in America, we are a nation that is better than anger and insults and cursing and rage. And I believe the people of Indiana have a common sense, good judgment that we want real solutions.
Everybody vote Trump!
Thank you, sir.
And it was really this scene that caused me to change my thinking about Trump. These are Indiana voters. So I thought, well, maybe Trump can do well in Midwestern states, like Michigan, Wisconsin, Western Pennsylvania, Ohio, Iowa. These Americans that you see here talking to Ted Cruz are the kinds of voters who have always voted Democrat since FDR's New Deal. And they like the fact that Trump is a brawler. The fact that Trump is from Queens, New York and grew up on construction sites means Trump speaks the same language that they're used to hearing. Yes, Trump is a multi-billionaire, but he speaks the language of a construction worker, of a factory worker. Trump's language certainly doesn't generally appeal to Ivy League grads. They think his language is crude and too harsh. I'm an Ivy League school grad, graduated from Dartmouth College, so I was not at all connecting with Trump. I didn't get the Trump vibe. But Trump's style and vibe very much appeals to the construction worker, the factory worker. And the more Trump is attacked by the elites, the media, and so on, the more these people love Trump. They see Trump as a fighter. Ted Cruz is a Harvard-educated lawyer, very articulate, but he's not going to resonate with these people. And it was Ted Cruz's encounter with these people that really got me to understand the appeal of Trump. And Donald Trump's personality is actually no different from many people who come from Queens, New York, or Brooklyn, New York, or Staten Island, New York. Queens is a working class area, and Donald Trump's style of talking is exactly how people from Queens talk. I had a very good friend when I was a student at Dartmouth College who was from Queens, New York. He was of Italian descent, and he pretty much talked exactly like Donald Trump, or Joe Pesci in Goodfellas, and interactions with him were mostly a steady stream of insults and jokes. But he also had a heart of gold and would do anything for you. Any favor you might ask of him, he'd say sure. But you had to get used to the constant insults. And then if he sensed sometimes you went too far, he might say, "Hey, I'm just kidding, just busting your balls." That's how people from Queens talk. And it's how Donald Trump talks. And it's also why I never thought that somebody from New York City could ever get elected President of the United States. I was wrong. I also very much like the fact that Donald Trump has single-handedly transformed the Republican Party into a populist, America-first party of the working class. Before Donald Trump, the Republican Party always had the image of being the party of bankers and country club types. But Donald Trump transformed the Republican Party into the party of the working class. And I very much like that about Trump. Yes, Trump is a multi-billionaire, But he grew up on construction sites in Queens because that was his dad's business. So Trump speaks like construction workers from Queens. And he knows what these folks want to hear. Now let's hear Donald Trump praising Ted Cruz after the race is over.
To me, he's not Lion Ted anymore.
What is he now?
Beautiful Ted.
Beautiful
Texas,
Ted.
I call him Texas Ted. No, Ted Cruz and I had a very, very nasty and tough campaign. It was a very competitive, it was a very tough campaign. Once it ended and we got together, and by the way, very late into the campaign, we lasted. People were shocked. I said, don't worry, it's only a question of time. And then ultimately what happened, we fought it out. The outcome was obvious. And we have worked together very closely. I like him a lot. I actually like him a lot. And he's a very smart guy. He loves the people of Texas, which I do.
In just 15 days, the people of Texas are going to re-elect a man who has become a really good friend of mine. You know, we had our little difficulties, right?
I'm proud to have worked hand in hand with President Trump to repeal job-killing regulations that were hammering the state of Texas.
Again, this is the Trump formula. Trump's vicious and brutal attacks are not personal. Trump just does what he needs to do to win. And once the battle is over, he works to bring his defeated opponent into the tent. Now let's see how Trump applied this formula to governing. And my favorite example of this is how he forged a relationship with the dictator of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, who is conducting nuclear weapons tests all the time and firing ICBM missiles over Japan and threatening nuclear war with South Korea and with the United States and pretty much with everyone. Kim Jong-un is a madman, like his father and like his grandfather. Let's see how Donald Trump handled Kim Jong-un. First, we have the bellicose Trump, where he calls Kim Jong-un Little Rocket Man and says the U.S. has no choice but to take action.
And by the way, Rocket Man should have been handled a long time ago. Little Rocket Man. We're going to do it because we really have no choice. We really have no choice. Now he's talking about a massive weapon exploding over the ocean, Pacific Ocean, which causes tremendous calamity. Where that plume goes, so goes cancer, so goes tremendous problems. And I want to tell you something, and I'm sure he's listening because he watches every word, and I guarantee you one thing, he's watching us like he never watched anybody before. That I can tell you. That I can tell you. And maybe something gets worked out, and maybe it doesn't. Personally, I'm not sure that it will. Other people like to say, oh, we want peace. You know, they've been saying for now 25 years, oh, we want peace, we want peace. And then he goes and just keeps going. Well, maybe something gets worked out, and maybe it doesn't. But I can tell you one thing, you are protected, okay? You are protected. Nobody's going to mess with our people. Nobody is going to play games. Nobody is going to put our people in that kind of danger. Nobody.
And this clearly got Kim Jong-un's attention. Clearly Kim Jong-un believed Trump was serious. So then Trump was able to strike up a relationship with Kim Jong-un, actually met Kim Jong-un at the DMZ zone, and stepped into North Korea. Donald Trump is the first American president ever to step into communist North Korea. And again, we see how quickly Trump can turn from threatening Trump, from bellicose Trump, to nice Trump. Trump ultimately wants to get along with people. He's a deal maker. But to get good deals, you do have to be tough.
Do you feel, Excellency, take a step forward? You will be the first U.S. president to cross this line.
And Kim Jong-un walking toward one another, then that handshake, both looking serious before smiling just moments later. The first time ever a sitting U.S. president would meet with the leader of North Korea. First sitting down one-on-one before meeting with a larger group, and then walking together. The president saying after the first meeting, the two already had an excellent relationship. At one point, President Trump showing Kim the presidential limousine called the Beast. But it was this moment that seemed the most unlikely of all. Both men sitting down and signing an agreement, President Trump promising Kim Jong-un security and Kim Jong-un promising complete denuclearization.
And here's how Trump handled a highly skeptical media. And Trump was actually a master at handling a very hostile media, famously branding the fake news as fake news. Trump really broke the media. So let's see how Trump handles questions from a very hostile media about his meeting with the dictator of North Korea. And this is an impromptu press conference on the White House lawn. And look how he dominates these hostile reporters.
Because I don't want to see a nuclear weapon destroy you and your family.
Well, and by the way, you've declared
I don't want to see,
excuse me,
because I don't want to see a nuclear weapon destroy you and your family. I want to have a good relationship with North Korea. I want to have a good relationship with many other countries. And what I've done, if you remember, if you're fair, which most of you aren't, but if you're fair, when I came in, people thought we were probably going to war with North Korea.
But
if we did,
the threat is over. Is it over?
Quiet. If we did, millions of people would have been killed. I don't mean like, people saying 100,000. Seoul has 28 million people 30 miles off the border. You would have had 30, 40, 50 million people killed. Who knows what would have happened? I came in, that was what I inherited. I should have never inherited. That should have been solved long before I got there. I did a great job this weekend. The fake news said, oh, you met. The only thing they saw that I gave up. One broadcast said, he gave up so much. You know what I gave up? I met. We had great chemistry. He gave us a lot. You haven't had a missile test in 7 months. You haven't had a firing. You haven't had a nuclear test in 8.5 months. You haven't had missiles flying over Japan. They're doing so much for us. And now we're well on our way to get denuclearization. And the agreement says there will be total denuclearization. Nobody wants to report that. So the only thing I did was I met. I got along with him great. He is great. We have a great chemistry together. That's a good thing, not a bad thing.
How can Kim love his people if he's killing them?
I can't speak to that. I can only speak to the fact that we signed an incredible agreement. It's great. And it's going to be great for them, too. Because now North Korea can develop, and North Korea can become a great country economically. It can become whatever they want. But there won't be nuclear weapons, and they won't be aimed at you and your family.
You can't imagine Joe Biden fielding any questions, much less one hostile question after another from reporters. But Trump handles these questions with ease. Very few politicians have this skill level.
Okay, go ahead.
What did you mean just now when you said you wished Americans would sit up at attention when you spoke?
I'm kidding. You don't understand sarcasm. Who are you with? Wait. Who are you with? Who are you with? You're with CNN?
Wait, Mr. President.
We now have a very good relationship with North Korea. When I came into this job, it looked like war. Not because of me, but because if you remember the sit down with Barack Obama, I think he will admit this, he said the biggest problem that the United States has, and by far the most dangerous problem, and he said to me that we've ever had because of nuclear, is North Korea. Now, that was shortly before I entered office. I have solved that problem. Now we're getting it memorialized and all, but that problem is largely solved, and part of the reason is we signed, number one, a very good document. But you know what? More importantly than the document, I have a good relationship with Kim Jong-un. That's a very important thing. I can now call him. I can now say, well, we have a problem. I told him, I gave him a very direct number. He can now call me if he has any difficulty. I can call him. We have communication. It's a very good thing. People are shocked that this is the kind of, they thought Trump was going to get in, he was going to start throwing bombs all over the place. It's actually the opposite.
Well,
but we're building a military so strong, $716 billion. Next year, 700 this year. We're building a military so strong, nobody's going to mess with us. But you know what? I never want to have to use it.
Can you tell us about the verification?
You told Americans they can sleep well at night. You told Americans they can sleep well at night. You told Americans that they can sleep well at night, and you declared there's no more
verification process going to look like. What's the verification process?
We're going to have a very strong verification process. Now, if you read the agreement, with most of you didn't. Point after point after point he gave, including getting back the remains of our great heroes, okay? Of our great, great heroes, which made some people are crying in the streets. They're so happy. Nobody thought we were going to get that. Point after point. All they said about me is, you met, he met, it's terrible, he met. Of course I met. Meeting is a good thing, not a bad thing. By the way, it was good for the United States, it was good for them. I spoke with China. They're very happy. Actually, they were much happier. Now, they may not be as happy today because of what I'm doing with trade. You probably heard that. I assume it's been announced by now. But we're putting tariffs on $50 billion worth of technology and other things because we have to, because we've been treated very unfairly. But China's been terrific. President Xi has been terrific. President Moon, everybody, we're all working together because of me.
Mr. President, how long will you give Kim Jong-un to follow through on denuclearization?
Well, we're working it as fast as possible.
Before you put those sanctions back on.
We're working it as fast as possible.
What do you think about the
We're working that. We're working denuclearization as fast as possible.
Are you planning on
And here's what Trump says about Vladimir Putin.
Are you planning to meet with Putin this summer?
It's possible that we'll meet, yeah. And I thought, this all started because one of you asked, should Putin be in the G7? I said, no, he should be in the G8. A few years ago, Putin was in what was called the G8. I think it's better to have Russia in than to have Russia out. Because just like North Korea, just like somebody else, it's much better if we get along with them than if we don't.
Trump thinks it's better to get along with Putin if possible than to be at war with Putin. He also reminds everyone that Obama lost Crimea because Putin saw Obama as weak.
No. President Obama lost Crimea, just so you understand. This was long before I got there. I want to make it so the fake news prints it properly. President Obama lost Crimea. So
is it part of Russia?
That's his fault. It's his fault. Yeah, it's his fault.
Is it part of Russia?
Just so you understand, because Putin didn't respect President Obama. President Obama lost Crimea because President Putin didn't respect President Obama, didn't respect our country, and didn't respect Ukraine. But President Obama, not Trump, when it's my fault, I'll tell you, but President Obama gave away that. Now, President Obama, by not going across the red line in the sand that he drew, I went across it with the 59 missile hits. But President Obama, when he didn't go across the red line, what he gave away, nobody even knows.
Mr. President, your ally
But just to put it one more time, President Obama gave away Crimea. That should have never happened.
And I absolutely love Trump's branding of the fake news as fake news. Donald Trump really did break the legacy news media. Thanks to Donald Trump, pretty much everyone is just calling the news the fake news. No one believes the news anymore. And here's Donald Trump in May of 2023 sitting for a CNN town hall, where he's asked about Vladimir Putin and Putin's invasion of Ukraine, and whether Trump would continue arming Ukraine.
What's your question for the president, Caitlin?
Hello, President Trump.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
The current administration has made it clear that we should continue to provide military equipment to Ukraine so that they can defend themselves. Do you support this decision, and how would you deal with the increasing threat posed by Vladimir Putin?
First of all, thank you very much. It's really nice. And it's an important question, so important. But here's the thing. I have to say it to start off, no longer matters. If I were president, this would have never happened. And even the Democrats admit that. Putin knew it would have never happened. And his pipeline would have never happened. A lot of things would have never happened. But this would never happen. And all those dead people, both Russian and Ukrainian, they wouldn't be dead today. And all those cities that are blown up and disintegrated right to the ground, that wouldn't have happened. Okay.
First, Trump says that Putin never would have invaded Ukraine if Trump had been president. And I think that's very believable.
Now, here's the problem. We've given so far $171 billion. They've given, meaning European Union, which is approximately the same size altogether as our economy. They've given about 20. So we're at 170, let's say, and they're at 20. You don't have to know too much about history to realize, or geography, to realize that they're a little bit more affected than we are, okay? So they've got to put up a lot more money because they're taking advantage of us like every other country did.
And this, of course, is a recurring Trump theme. Why is the United States paying for 80% of the Russia-Ukraine war when Europe is right next to Ukraine? Europe's combined economy is about the same size as ours. When Trump was president, he was able to get NATO to step up and pay a lot more of NATO's budget.
But her question is, would you continue to give Ukraine money and weapons if you're elected?
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours.
And this was a great answer. Now, obviously, Trump is not going to be able to end the war in 24 hours in his first 24 hours as president. That's typical Trump hyperbole. But his intention is clear with that statement. And that's the purpose of Trump hyperbole. It makes people pay attention. It signals to people what his intention is. And I think it is very credible that Donald Trump can end the war. We don't know exactly how, he's not specific on that. But it is credible that he will find a way to end the war. And it doesn't appear that the Biden regime has any intention of ending the war.
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours.
How would you settle that war in one day?
Because I'll meet with Putin, I'll meet with Zelensky. They both have weaknesses and they both have strengths. And within 24 hours, that war will be settled. It'll be over. It'll be absolutely over.
Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people and breaking down this country.
Another perfect answer. You can't end the war if you are perceived to be on one side. If Putin perceives Donald Trump as more or less a neutral referee, there's a chance to end the war. But if the United States is perceived as an enemy of Russia, there's no chance to end the war. The war won't end.
Can I just follow up on that? You said you don't think in terms of winning and losing. Mr. President, can I just follow up on that because that's a really important statement that you just made there. Can you say if you want Ukraine or Russia to win this war?
I want everybody to stop dying.
This is another great skill that Donald Trump has. He's able to communicate at a fifth grade level. And that's very difficult to do, by the way. Boil down complex subjects so that a fifth grader can understand what you're saying. This is not the language of the foreign policy establishment in Washington, D.C., but it is the language of the average person. Donald Trump is not talking to the State Department, not speaking at a foreign policy conference of scholars. He's talking to the average American. And again, what he's saying is very believable. Putin, of course, saw the completely incompetent way that Joe Biden and his administration withdrew American forces from Afghanistan, how he turned over $83 billion of U.S. weaponry to the Taliban, how he turned over the Bagram Air Base to the Taliban that was built by U.S. taxpayers. And then Biden, in a press conference in January of 2022, suggested in response to a question that a minor incursion by Russia into Ukraine might be acceptable.
President triggered alarm bells in Europe, suggesting the U.S. and NATO response would be determined by the size of a Russian invasion.
It depends on what it does. It's one thing if it's a minor incursion.
That earned a rare rebuke from Ukraine's president, tweeting there are no minor incursions, just as there are no minor casualties.
3 weeks after this, Putin invaded Ukraine. Biden essentially gave him the green light to go ahead. It was, of course, an accident on Biden's part. He doesn't know what day it is, doesn't know what he's saying. Putin saw this and pounced. So yes, I think it's highly doubtful that Putin would have invaded Ukraine if Donald Trump had been president. Because you know this would have triggered a ferocious response by Trump. And Putin knows it.
Can you say if you want Ukraine or Russia to win this war?
I want everybody to stop dying. They're dying. Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying. And I'll have that done. I'll have that done in 24 hours. I'll have it done. You need the power of the presidency to do it.
When you were in office, you said that you respected President Putin. Do you still respect him today?
He made a tremendous mistake. He was a smart guy, you know. I remember I said he was smart, she was smart.
What was his
he
mistake?
said President Xi of China, right, is smart. Okay, 1.5 billion people. He's the ruler of 1.5 billion people. I said, yeah, he's a smart guy. How dare he say he's smart? Of course he's smart. They want you to say he's a stupid person. Okay, he's not a stupid person. He's very smart. He's very cunning. And Putin made a bad mistake, in my opinion.
What was his mistake?
His mistake was going in. He would have never gone in if I was president. We used to talk about it there.
Do you believe that he is a war criminal?
What?
Do you believe that Putin is a war criminal? He's responsible for the deaths of thousands of Ukrainian men and women and
I think it's something that should not be discussed now. It should be discussed later. Because right now we have to get a war. If you say he's a war criminal, it's going to be a lot tougher to make a deal to get this thing stopped. Because if he's going to be a war criminal where people are going to go and grab him and execute him, he's going to fight a lot harder than he's fighting, you know, under the other circumstance. That's something to be discussed at a later date.
Right
now, we want to get that war settled.
Again, this is a perfect answer. Obviously, Putin is not going to stop the war if he thinks he's going to be arrested and tried as a war criminal and probably executed or imprisoned for the rest of his life.
I'm talking about all the lives that are being, the number of people being killed in that war is far greater than you're hearing. When they blow up a city and those buildings come pouring down and then they say 2 people were injured, no, hundreds and thousands of people are being killed, and we have to get that war settled.
Does this sound like Hitler to you? Trump is genuinely concerned and heartbroken by the hundreds of thousands of lives that have been lost in the Ukraine war, on both sides. Yet the media keeps telling the American people that electing Trump for a second term is the same as electing Hitler.
What would a second Donald Trump term look like?
He will unravel the institutions of our democracy.
Draw similarities between Mussolini and Hitler.
Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini.
Makes Donald Trump even more dangerous.
And shoot visitors to the White House. Yeah, that means he can shoot the First Lady.
Make it illegal to run against him, to throw his opponents in jail, to shut down the media.
Using martial law against the American people.
Terminate the Constitution, create mass internment camps.
Throw everyone into Gitmo.
You might have any number of things happen to you and your family.
Every one of us, our freedom, our liberty, none of us is safe.
It's going to have people around him executing against an enemy's list.
Assassinate generals.
Ordering troops to attack American citizens.
Trump's very well-armed and extremist base will try to kill people.
It's the end of democracy.
I think that could be the end of our democracy.
But democracy is dead if Trump is reelected.
Arrest political opponents.
It's going to make the law. Everyone else will have to follow.
A vote for Donald Trump may mean the last election that you ever get to vote in.
He would never leave office?
There's no question.
Trump is reelected, he won't leave.
Donald Trump will never leave office voluntarily.
And what that means is that everybody who wants us to remain a republic has to put every other thing aside.
Well, he cannot be the next president.
This is the line that the legacy media is hammering every day, which is how they justify these political prosecutions of Trump. They believe any means can be used to defeat Trump, even if this means destroying our constitutional republic in the process. And I do wonder if the media and the Democrats actually believe this, believe that Trump is Hitler. Or is this just propaganda? I think it's mostly just propaganda. I think smart people, smart Democrats know that Trump is not Hitler. But they think that they can get maybe a third of the American people, the low-info crowd, to believe it. And I think that the reason that they're taking the Trump is Hitler line is because everything they have thrown at Donald Trump hasn't worked. It's just bounced off him. The more they attack him, the stronger he gets. So they keep ratcheting up the attacks to more insane levels, hoping that will work. One criminal charge is not enough. They have to come up with 88 criminal charges. One criminal court case isn't enough. So they have to come up with 4 criminal trials in 4 jurisdictions, federal and local, hoping that one will somehow succeed in derailing Trump. But the attacks aren't working because there are just too many. And they just sound so unhinged. So they have to call him Hitler. Or even worse than Hitler. But it's like the boy who cried wolf. None of this is believable because the fake news, the Biden White House, and the National Democrat Party have proven themselves to be so corrupt and such liars, which is why very few people believe the fake news anymore. And we have Donald Trump to thank for this. He confronted the fake news head on, called it what it is, and he's completely exposed and broken the legacy news media. We also know exactly how Donald Trump will govern because he's already had one term as president, so the Hitler label just isn't believable. And America did well under Trump, until the pandemic hit, which shut down the world economy. No hint of Hitler in Trump's first term. In fact, he delivered an era of peace and calm in the Middle East, something that had never been achieved before. Under Trump, the U.S. military erased ISIS, the insane terrorist organization that controlled an area the size of Indiana at the end of Obama's presidency. You remember ISIS beheading Americans, lining up Christians and beheading them on the beach?
From the new video of the apparent murder of Steven Sotloff, and here is the killing of James Foley.
You, Obama, have yet again, through your actions, killed yet another American citizen. So just as your missiles continue to strike our people, our knife will continue to strike the necks of your people. Any attempt by you, Obama, to deny the Muslims their rights of living in safety under the Islamic Caliphate will result in the bloodshed of your people.
From there to join the fight against the Syrian government. people who are thought to be handling foreigners captured by ISIS.
ISIS released a new video today claiming to show the mass execution of Ethiopian Christians in Libya.
The latest ISIS video delivered a clear and direct threat to Christians in the Middle East.
You will not have safety, even in your dreams, until you embrace Islam.
Then militants carried out what appears to be a mass execution. Masked men lined up two groups of Ethiopian Christians, shooting some captives and beheading others.
Under Trump, the U.S. military hunted down and killed ISIS founder al-Baghdadi in 2019, along with most of the ISIS leadership.
Last night, the United States brought the world's #1 terrorist leader to justice. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead. He was the founder and leader of ISIS, the most ruthless and violent terror organization anywhere in the world. Capturing or killing Baghdadi has been the top national security priority of my administration. U.S. Special Operations Forces executed a dangerous and daring nighttime raid in northwestern Syria and accomplished their mission in grand style. The U.S. personnel were incredible. I got to watch much of it. No personnel were lost in the operation, while a large number of Baghdadi's fighters and companions were killed with him. But at my direction, as Commander-in-Chief of the United States, we obliterated his caliphate 100% in March of this year.
And here's one I just love. In August of 2015, the Republican presidential primary candidates were asked what they would do about Iran's top terrorist leader and general, Qasem Soleimani, who had been conducting terrorist attacks across the Middle East, including killing hundreds of Americans over a 2-decade period.
Candidates, you may not have seen the late developing news today. Our Fox Pentagon team broke earlier this evening about a top Iranian general traveling to Moscow to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. His name is General Qasem Soleimani. He's blamed for hundreds of U.S. troops' deaths in Iraq and Afghanistan. His trip to Russia appears to directly violate UN Security Council resolutions to confine him to Iran. So, Mr. Trump, if you were president, how would you respond to this?
I would be so different from what you have right now.
So Trump answered Bret Baier's question on January 3rd, 2020.
Breaking news. In a major escalation in tensions between the U.S. and Iran, the top Iranian general has been killed in an airstrike while leaving the Baghdad airport. The Pentagon confirmed the U.S. military carried out the attack. Qasem Soleimani was one of the most powerful figures in the Middle East and had been the top military man in Iran for more than 20 years.
Last night, at my direction, the United States military successfully executed a flawless precision strike that killed the #1 terrorist anywhere in the world, Qasem Soleimani. Soleimani was plotting imminent and sinister attacks on American diplomats and military personnel, but we caught him in the act and terminated him. For years, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and its ruthless Quds Force under Soleimani's leadership has targeted, injured, and murdered hundreds of American civilians and servicemen. The recent attacks on U.S. targets in Iraq, including rocket strikes that killed an American and injured 4 American servicemen very badly, as well as a violent assault on our embassy in Baghdad, were carried out at the direction of Soleimani. Soleimani made the death of innocent people his sick passion, contributing to terrorist plots as far away as New Delhi and London. Soleimani has been perpetrating acts of terror to destabilize the Middle East for the last 20 years. What the United States did yesterday should have been done long ago. A lot of lives would have been saved. Under my leadership, we have destroyed the ISIS territorial caliphate, and recently American Special Operations Forces killed the terrorist leader known as al-Baghdadi. The world is a safer place without these monsters.
And the result? An era of relative peace and calm in the Middle East. Something few thought possible. Compare this to Biden. Middle East now in flames. Wars breaking out everywhere. We're on the brink of World War III. And then how about Trump on border security and illegal immigration? And remember how Trump is the master of the visual.
Then they say, you can't build a wall. It's too big. Well, 3,000 years ago, the Great Wall of China was built. We'd like to have that wall. That wall nobody gets through. That I can tell you.
A wall is visual. People can see a wall in their mind. This told voters that Trump is serious about border security. So while Jeb was talking about illegal immigration being an act of love, and Marco Rubio was talking about E-Verify, and other candidates were providing complicated, nuanced, and multifaceted solutions to illegal immigration, Trump was just saying, we're going to build a wall, and it'll be a great wall. People can understand a great wall. Now, obviously, a wall alone won't keep people out. You also need border patrol, electronic surveillance, and aggressive deportations for those who get through. But you do need a physical barrier, just like prisons need walls and bars to keep people in. Prisons also need guards and electronic surveillance. Otherwise, prisoners will find a way out if all there are walls and no guards and no electronic surveillance. But Trump, being a master marketer, emphasized the wall because it's visual. And to punctuate this point in a humorous way, he also said that Mexico will pay for it. And of course he knew that this would set off the liberals, the Democrats, and the fake news, which would further hammer home the point in voters' minds that Trump is serious about border security.
I will build a great, great wall, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall.
And this promise sent a signal to his base that Trump is not a conventional politician, that he has imagination. Plus his promise that Mexico would pay for the wall was not politically correct, which also played well to his base and to the Republican electorate, and with many other people. And of course, Trump was mocked for his promise that Mexico would pay for the wall.
I will build a better wall, and I'll build it for cheaper, and Mexico will pay, if that's your next question.
Yeah, how do you get Mexico to pay?
Because they are ripping us left and right. This is like the wall. Believe me, we're going to build a wall, Mexico's going to pay for it. They don't get it, because I'm a business guy. That's what I do.
So then Trump offered specifics of how that would happen.
Mexico, in some form, and there are many different forms, will reimburse us, whether it's a tax or whether it's a payment. Probably less likely that it's a payment. There will be a payment. It will be in a form, perhaps a complicated form. We're working on a tax reform bill that will reduce our trade deficits, increase American exports, and will generate revenue from Mexico that will pay for the wall if we decide to go that route. We're thinking about building the wall as a solar wall, so it creates energy and pays for itself. What we save on that just with Mexico will pay for the wall many times over. I view that as absolutely Mexico is paying for the wall. And when I said Mexico will pay for the wall in front of thousands and thousands of people, obviously they're not going to write a check.
They're not going to write us a check, but
they'll pay. They'll pay in one form or another. They may even write us a check.
Mexico can pay for the wall in the form of a tax, a tariff, or a toll, like a toll bridge. And of course, then building the wall and having Mexico pay for it became a rallying cry for the Trump campaign. It became part of his brand. And of course, there was an element of humor to it.
We will build the wall, and Mexico will pay for the wall. 16,500 Border Patrol agents endorsed Donald Trump. They know what's going on.
Some of your Republican rivals have criticized you for not fulfilling the promises that you made on the campaign trail, like finishing the border wall. So how did voters know that you would get those done if you're reelected?
I built hundreds of miles of wall. If we didn't have it, it would be hard to believe it could be any worse. They're just letting people flow into our country. Look, a country has to have borders. There's never been anything like is happening to our country right now.
You built about 52 miles of new wall when you were in office, Mr. President. It wasn't the complete wall. One other thing that with immigration...
No, but I have to respond to that.
With your immigration, it was only about 52 miles of new wall.
This is what she does. I built hundreds of miles. Some of the wall was up there, and it would be laying on the ground, rusted, rotten steel, rusted, rotten wood, a little... And what the radical left crazy Democrats did, if there's a piece of wood laying down, they consider that a wall. I built 30-foot walls that go down 7 feet into the ground. If there was a little piece of wood sitting in the ground, they said, oh, he's not building a wall. We already had a wall. Because this is the game. They're a party of disinformation.
But also, Trump always made it clear that he was not anti-Mexico or anti-Hispanic.
I love the Mexican people. I've had thousands of Mexicans working for me. I sell apartments for millions of dollars to people from Mexico. They love me.
In fact, most Latino Americans, most Hispanic Americans want a secure border. And the polls now show that Trump is running about even with Joe Biden among Hispanics, which is amazing. Trump is getting more support from Hispanics than any Republican ever has. And I think it's because of his working class vibe that he throws off with his rhetoric, something that no Republican has been able to do. Trump is, of course, still having a lot of trouble with college-educated women. A big majority of those voters can't stand him. They think he's harsh, crude, and don't like his tone. And there are a lot of those voters. So Trump's brawling macho style is not without costs. Trump is just not a Reagan-style Republican. He's a brawler, very different from Reagan. In another area that Trump veers away from traditional Republican doctrine is on trade. Historically, at least since Reagan, most Republicans have adhered to the doctrine of free trade and have opposed tariffs, even if other countries cheat, like China. Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman articulated the Republican view on trade and opposition to tariffs.
We hear from the American steel industry that in Japan, for instance, steel producers are producing at less than cost with support of the government so as to keep employment up there. And as a result, the American steel industry here is not going to be able to compete. So they're going to shut down and we're going to have higher unemployment here. What is your answer to that?
The answer is very straightforward. Let us suppose for a moment that the Japanese flood us with steel. That will reduce employment in the American steel industry, no doubt. However, it will increase employment elsewhere in America. We will pay for that steel with dollars. What will the Japanese do with the dollars they get for the steel? They aren't going to burn them. They aren't going to tear them up. If they would, that would be best of all. Because there's nothing we can produce more cheaply than green pieces of paper. And if they were willing to send us steel and just take back green pieces of paper, I can't imagine a better deal. But they're not going to do that. They're not stupid. They're smart people. They're going to use those dollars to buy goods and services. They're going to spend them. In the process of spending them, they may spend them directly in the United States, and that directly provides employment in the United States. They may spend them in Brazil or in Germany or in China or anywhere else. But whoever gets them in turn is going to spend them. So the dollars that we spend for the steel will find their way back to the U.S. as demand for U.S. goods and services. You will have less employment in the steel industry. You will have more employment in the industries producing the goods we export. Overall, total employment will not be affected. But overall, the American consumer will be benefited because he will get the steel more cheaply and the goods made from the steel more cheaply than he otherwise would.
So this was my view of trade and tariffs. I believed Milton Friedman, who I had up to Dartmouth to speak. And the Friedman view was Republican orthodoxy, until Donald Trump.
You can win against China if you're smart, but our people don't have a clue. They can't believe how stupid the American leadership is. These dummies say, oh, well, that's a trade war. Trade war? We're losing $500 billion in trade with China. Who the hell cares if there's a trade war? When they send their product here, there's no tax. Come on in. We're the stupid people. Come on in, sell whatever you want. We give state dinners to the heads of China. They're ripping us left and right. Just take them to McDonald's and go back to the negotiating table. Seriously. I like China. People think I don't like China. I love China. I just sold an apartment for $15 million to somebody from China. How could I dislike China? I go to China. China loves me.
We live off Chinese manufacturing, whether we like it or not.
That's because when you say we, you are stupid. They just devalued their currency the other day. They call it a sucking action. They're sucking the jobs and the money right out of our country. That's what they're doing.
And this is another big reason why Trump resonated so strongly with the working class. American factory workers can see that they're losing their jobs to China and that their jobs are being outsourced overseas. Donald Trump is the only Republican politician at the presidential level even to address this worry on the part of the working class of America. This is why 8% of Obama's voters voted for Donald Trump in 2016. And it's why 12% of Bernie Sanders voters voted for Trump in 2016. So Trump was picking up a whole swath of new voters that have never before voted Republican. In addition, Donald Trump's attack on George W. Bush for the Iraq War and his skepticism of foreign wars in general appealed to wide swaths of the population that had never before voted Republican. The prairie populists, the Bernie Sanders type voters. And I think this is going to be even more true in 2024. For fun, let's hit on some more Donald Trump highlights. Here's Trump on Obama's Secretary of State, John Kerry. This is just hysterical.
When you make the deal, aren't you supposed to sort of solve everything? And Kerry said he didn't want to bring it up because he didn't want to complicate the negotiation. This guy's an idiot. $400 million being flown to Iran. This is in cash, in currency. It's a disgrace. I wonder where that money really goes, by the way, right? He doesn't even call to get our hostages back from Iran. Secretary Kerry, I highly think you should read this book quickly. Quickly! I mean, here's a guy goes on a bicycle to go on a bicycle race. He's 73 years old. He's in a bicycle race. And he's got all this stuff on. He's got the whole deal. The company's the whole deal, the helmet.
A quick spin through the Swiss Alps following negotiations on Iran's nuclear policy went awry for U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry.
He falls, he breaks his leg during the negotiation.
He was flown by medical helicopter to Geneva's main hospital.
This is our chief negotiator. He's walking in. They're looking at him like, what a schmuck. I swear to you, I will never be in a bicycle race as long as I'm president.
And here's Trump on Obama.
Our president doesn't have a clue. He's a bad negotiator. He's weak and he's ineffective and he's not respected. We ought to fire him. I'd fire his ass right now if I could. Through. F, fail, F, fail, F, F, F. President Obama, I highly think you should read this book quickly. Quickly!
Here's Trump destroying Marco Rubio in the 2016 Republican primaries. You remember, Lil Marco.
When they put Marco on to refute President Obama's speech, do you remember that catastrophe? And he's like this, and we were, I need water, help me, I need water, help. And this is on live television. This total joke artist. It's Rubio. That's what it. Unbelievable. Little Marco, little Marco. Once a joker, always a joker. I watched a meltdown like I've never, ever seen. And it was Chris grilling Marco Rubio.
And let's dispel once and for all with this fiction that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing.
This guy was sweating so badly. Oh, he was sweating. Honestly, it was disgusting.
But I would add this. Let's dispel with this fiction that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing.
And then it went a third time, a fourth time, and a fifth time. And I was ready to grab him because I thought he was going down.
And this notion that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing is just not true.
There it is.
He knows exactly
there it is,
what he's
the
doing.
memorized 25-second speech.
And that was one of the epic meltdowns. He didn't know where he was. I thought he was gonna die. Good going, Chris.
Anyone who believes that Barack Obama isn't doing what he's doing on purpose doesn't understand what we're dealing with here.
He's a joke artist. He chokes. I was standing right next to him. I look over, I say, are you okay? I mean, it looked like he just came out of a swimming pool. He was soaking wet. Marco is not a negotiator. I watched him melt down, and I'll tell you, it was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. When you're a choker, you're always a choker. We can't have that. We can't take any chances in this country.
Rubio ended his campaign after a humiliating loss in his home state of Florida as Trump sailed to the Republican nomination in 2016. Marco Rubio, once the great hope of the Republican Party establishment, has towed the Trump line ever since.
And here's what Trump did to poor Dr. Ben Carson, when Carson had either taken the lead or was in second place in the polls going into the Iowa caucuses in 2016.
It's Donald Trump's most over-the-top attack yet, going after Ben Carson, using words Carson wrote in his autobiography about his troubled youth, when he said he had a, quote, pathological temper.
So he said he has pathological disease. Now, If you're pathological, there's no cure for that, folks. Okay? If you're a child molester, a sick puppy, you're a child molester, there's no cure for that.
Word pathological, that does not denote incurable. It's not the same.
He said he hit or tried to hit his mother over the head with a hammer. I didn't. Me? Mary McLeod? No way. If you try and hit your mother over the head with a hammer, your poll numbers go up. When he said he hit a friend of his in the face with a lock, with a padlock, I say, whoa, that's pretty bad. And don't forget, this is in his book. I'm not bringing up anything that's not in his book. He took a knife, and he went after a friend, and he lunged that knife into the stomach of his friends, but lo and behold, it hit the belt. It hit the belt, and the knife broke. Give me a break. Let me tell you, I'm pretty good at this stuff. So, I have a belt. Somebody hits me with a belt, it's going in because the belt moves this way. It moves this way. It moves that way. He hit the belt buckle. Anybody have a knife? You want to try it on me? Believe me, it ain't gonna work. You're gonna be successful. But he took the knife, he went like this, and he plunged it into the belt. And amazingly, the belt stayed totally flat. And the knife broke. So Carson, oh, the knife broke. There it is. It's laying in the, oh, good. So what he's saying is that these series of events, and he goes into the bathroom for a couple of hours, and he comes out, and now he's religious. And the people of Iowa believe him. Give me a break. It doesn't happen that way. Don't be fools. Don't be fools.
Frankly, he makes Bush look like the Energizer Bunny.
Ben Carson is super low energy, right? It's super. He's super low.
And this was really a terrible attack on Ben Carson because Carson is such a great guy. I really think this is overkill on the part of Trump. Sometimes I think Trump goes too far. I often wish Trump would tone down his Trumpiness maybe 20%. I think that would serve him well. But then, following the usual Trump formula, Trump said glowing things about Ben Carson after Carson dropped out and endorsed Trump.
Today is something very, very special because Dr. Ben Carson was respected by everybody. Everybody wanted his endorsement, and everybody loves him and truly, truly admires what he's done. His life has been an incredible life. It's been an awe-inspiring life. And I just want to tell you that having his support really, I think it adds just total credence to what I'm trying to do and to what we're all trying to do. So I just want to introduce Dr. Ben Carson, special person, special man. Thank you very much.
And here's more Donald Trump.
He and Hillary Clinton are two sides of the same coin. She's made her millions selling access and influence, and he's made his billions buying people like Hillary Clinton off. Donald Trump isn't a conservative.
Carly was a little nasty to me. Be careful, Carly. Be careful. But I can't say anything to her because she's a woman, and I don't want to be accused of being tough on women. I can't do that, right? Women, am I allowed to fight back? Huh? Am I allowed? That she ran Hewlett-Packard into the ground. I said I will not say it. The company is a disaster and continues to be a disaster. They still haven't recovered. That her stock value tanked. That she laid off tens of thousands of people. In fact, today on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, they fired another 25 or 30,000 people saying we still haven't recovered from the catastrophe. Carly was at Lucent before that. And Lucent turned out to be a catastrophe also. So I only say this. She can't run any of my companies. Politicians are all talk and no action. It's true. All talk, it's all yet. Politicians are really dishonest. Yeah.
Elizabeth Warren today on social media went after you, calling you a loser. How are you going?
Who's that, the Indian? You mean the Indian?
She said she was an Indian. She said because her cheekbones were high, she was an Indian. Who, Pocahontas? Pocahontas? Well, no, she's...
Very offensive.
You tell me. Oh, really? Oh, I'm sorry about that. Pocahontas? She's been going around pretending that she's a minority, right? And she's getting into colleges and she's doing all sorts of things. She's a total phony.
Do you regret calling her Pocahontas? Do you regret that?
I do regret calling her Pocahontas because I think it's a tremendous insult to Pocahontas.
Right.
So to Pocahontas, I would like to apologize to you.
The housing meltdown because it meant he could buy up more property on the cheap. What kind of a man does that?
She's one of the worst senators in the entire United States Senate. She's gotten practically nothing done. If it was up to her, you'd have taxes at 95%. She's got a big mouth, and that's about it. But they use her because Hillary's trying to be very presidential. She's stopping with the shouting, okay? Honestly, I think she hurt Hillary Clinton very badly. I watched those speeches, the anger, the hatred in her heart.
I got news for you, Donald Trump. Women have had it with guys like you.
Pocahontas would not be proud of her as her representative, believe me. I think she's as Native American as I am, okay? Why didn't you read my quote the way I said it?
Sir, I tried to pull it up and I didn't have Wi-Fi.
Well, then you got to get Wi-Fi, okay? You're not a very good reporter doing this. Really stupid guy, Chuck Todd. I won't use his name.
Let me let you respond to those poll numbers, which I think that you wanted to respond to.
I didn't want to respond. Your people called my office about 40 times asking me to go onto the show. So it's dishonest what you're saying, Chuck. You got to tell the truth, Chuck.
Let me ask you about your
Chuck,
debate.
You have to tell the truth.
For immigrants on the whole
Come on, try getting it out. Try getting it out.
I'll get it out.
I mean, I don't know if you're going to put this on television, but you don't even know what you're talking about. Try getting it out. Go ahead.
Going back to last June, is there anything you regret?
Yeah, I'd love to have done certain things over, but you can't. You can't. But that's true in life. And you would have too.
Give me one.
You would have loved not to have contributed to the Clinton Foundation, as an example.
Mr. Trump finally unveiled his nickname for Mrs. Clinton.
Crooked Hillary, folks. She's been crooked from the beginning. Hillary Clinton is a crook.
That's negative.
I call her Crooked Hillary. She's Crooked Hillary. Crooked. She's crooked as you can be. You have lobbyists that have a sign. It says Hillary. It's emblazoned, right? Tattooed. It's tattooed right on their forehead. It says Hillary. Basically what they're saying is, I control Clinton. Now she's blaming the lie on the late, great Abraham Lincoln. Honest Abe never lied. That's the good thing. That's the big difference between Abraham Lincoln and you.
Trump actually reminds me a lot of Muhammad Ali, just over the top with boasting and loudmouth antics.
I am the greatest. 15 times I have told the clown what round he's going down, and this chump ain't no different. He'll fall an 8 to prove that I'm great. And if he keeps talking jive, I'm going to cut it to 5. I'm the greatest thing that ever lived. I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest.
I'm the prettiest sight in the ring today. That's my label.
I'm too fast. About round 5. No special training, just be at the fight. I'm ready to back up everything I'm saying, and I'm through talking.
The man to beat me haven't been born yet.
I predict that this will be Buster's last stand. I will do the Buster what the Indians did to Custer. I'm going to wipe him out.
Now, my mom could not stand Muhammad Ali when he first burst on the scene. She saw him as a boaster and a braggart. I can't stand that guy, she would say. Ali was just such a contrast to the heavyweight boxing champs of old. Greats like Joe Louis and Rocky Marciano. Boasting was considered poor form. Muhammad Ali was something completely new. He was a boaster and a showman. And people really didn't like him much early in his career. But he became much more beloved late in his career, as people got used to him and kind of got the joke. And when Muhammad Ali retired, we all missed him. We knew we would never see someone like that again. And I think we'll have a similar view of Donald Trump after he completes his second term. Most Americans are going to miss him because he is so different, because he is a phenomenon that can never be replicated, that we'll never see again. He's a force of nature. And to understand Trump, you really have to read the book, The Art of the Deal. In there, he talks about his desire to make New York City great again, which is why he wanted to build big, beautiful skyscrapers in Manhattan. And when growing up, Donald Trump's father took the family to a church that was pastored by Norman Vincent Peale. Norman Vincent Peale wrote The Power of Positive Thinking. And this is an excellent book. You should read it if you haven't already. The theme of this book is that you're much more likely to be successful in life and achieve great things if you have an optimistic, positive outlook. And this really stands to reason. How can you be successful if you just assume all the time that bad things will happen? How can you get motivation if you think all your hard work will just end in failure? If you just assume success, you're much more likely to work hard toward your goals. And you see this outlook in all of Trump's speeches. Everything Trump does, he says, will be the biggest, the greatest, the best ever. We won't just have a secure border. We will build a Great Wall, like the Great Wall of China. And Mexico will pay for it. And we're going to make America great again. And we'll make America even greater than it's ever been before. That's how Donald Trump thinks and talks. He always assumes he's going to win. He never even considers the possibility that he might lose. And you're not going to be motivated to work hard to achieve something that is just mediocre, just okay. You'll work hard to achieve something great. That's the power of positive thinking. That's the philosophy that Donald Trump grew up with when he attended the church of Norman Vincent Peale. And I assume that Trump's dad shared the same philosophy, which is why he took the family to that church. And of course, Trump's dad was also very successful in business. He built and ran thousands of rental properties in New York City, built a grocery store chain. And positive thinking absolutely does work. In fact, I have a chapter in my new book, Win Life, titled Brainwash Yourself to Success. Win Life, Success Skills Schools Don't Teach. And this book contains just about everything I know about how to succeed in business and in life. It's available in all the formats.